Before Nia became the girl who listened to the earth, she was just a child born under strange silence. In the village of Tendo, babies usually arrived to the hum of drums, their first cries rising into celebration. But when Nia was born, the drums stopped. Her mother, Mama Sefu, held her close and stared in disbelief at the small face, with ears that were soft and long, slightly curved at the tips like cowrie shells. The midwife gasped. The women whispered. A hen crowed in the yard, as though warning of omen. She will listen to things she should not, said the oldest woman, her eyes cloudy with age, and one day, the things she hears will either save us or destroy us. From that moment, Nia grew under the shadow of whispers. Children followed her through narrow paths, chanting cruel words. Ears like wings, ears like calabash. But when the wind turned restless at night, even the mockers ran to their mothers, while Nia sat awake listening. She would whisper softly, "The earth is speaking again." And she was right. She could hear the soil murmur, the trees rustle, the mountains groan. The earth told her secrets of footsteps far away, of storms waiting to break, of roots holding buried memories. When she was 5, she warned the villagers that the mountain was coughing and its belly was full. They laughed until a landslide came roaring down, crushing yam barns and shaking homes. Then they began to look at her differently, with fear and awe mixed in their eyes. By 10, Nia had become tall and quiet. Her father, Sefu, a drum maker, carved one especially for her. He said gently, "When the world is too loud, beat this. It will remind you what sound belongs to you." The drum was small and heart-shaped, its surface smooth with antelope hide. Yet the world did not quiet. At night, she heard voices beneath the ground, whispers of the dead, songs of forgotten ancestors, cries of those unseen. She pressed her palms to her ears and shouted, "Be quiet." But the voices never stopped. One night, when the moon was broken into fragments across the sky, she sat by the fire and began to beat her drum. The rhythm rose slowly and the earth began to hum back, not hauntingly, but in harmony. Then from the drum's hollow came a man's voice, deep and calm, saying, "When the mountain sings, you must listen, Nia, for the mountain remembers what men forget." She ran to her father, trembling. He smiled strangely and said, "So you have heard him, the spirit of the mountain that guards Tendo. It has chosen you." After that night, Nia's ears seemed to change. They sharpened at the tips, faintly glowing under moonlight. When she listened deeply, it felt as though the whole world breathed through her. Years passed. She became graceful, quiet, and thoughtful. Suitors avoided her. Some feared her. Some called her cursed. Only Cairo, the hunter's son, saw beauty in her ears. "They look like wings," he said once. Wings meant to carry words to the sky. She smiled shyly for the first time, but her gift grew heavier. During a dry season, when the wells turned to dust, she heard water weeping underground. She told the elders, "Dig by the termite mound near the baobab. Water hides there." They mocked her, but when thirst became unbearable, they tried. And when the ground burst open with cold, sweet water, the laughter turned to silence. "How did she know?" they whispered. "Does she speak with spirits?" A jealous priest heard their fear and fanned it into anger. "No mortal should hear what only the gods hear," he said, scattering white powder around her mother's hut. The next morning, Nia saw her reflection trembling in the water. Her ears had grown longer, calling backward like horns. She wept. Her mother held her and whispered, "My child, gifts become burdens when the world refuses to understand." When Nia turned 16, misfortune struck Tendo. Cattle died, drums cracked, babies were born silent. The elders gathered and decided that someone had angered the spirits. The priest raised his trembling staff and pointed at Nia. "She listens where no human should. Her ears invite demons." The people believed him. Stones were thrown. Her mother clung to her, crying. Her father handed her the small drum, saying nothing. His eyes carried sorrow deeper than words. They sent her away beyond the mountains into the valley of mist, a place said to swallow travelers whole. As she disappeared into the fog, she heard the ground sigh softly. Do not fear, listener. Your journey has just begun. Days turned to weeks. She wandered hungry and alone. Trees whispered, rivers hummed, and sometimes her drum answered the wind. She met strange beings on her path, a grey monkey that spoke in riddles, a woman made of wind who wept pearls, and a boy who carried songs in his eyes but no voice to sing them. They stayed with her for a while, teaching patience, courage, and listening. At last, she reached a vast stone carved into the shape of an ear. When she placed her palm upon it, the earth trembled and a deep harm filled her bones. You are the last listener, the voice within said. The world forgets to listen. Even gods grow deaf. Through you, the balance can be restored. Visions followed of droughts and wars, of greed spreading like wildfire because no one listened anymore. The voice said, teach them to hear again, but remember, silence is never empty. Years passed before Nia returned. She had changed. Her ears were now luminous and graceful, shaped like flowing rivers. Her presence brought stillness. Even the birds quieted when she passed. The village of Tendo had grown weak with famine. Crops withered, drums no longer sang. When Nia appeared, people screamed and fell to their knees. The chief, frail and weary, stepped forward. Why have you returned? He asked. Nia looked down at the cracked ground and said simply, because you no longer listen. She knelt and pressed her ear to the soil. The earth whispered faintly. The river sleeps under the stone. Wake it. She told them to dig near the sacred grove. The priest protested, but desperation silenced him. They dug and water burst forth again, laughter rising from the ground. The people rejoiced, crying out, she was never cursed. But then, lightning split the sky, striking the priest where he stood. As his body fell, his lips moved with a final whisper, you have awakened what sleeps. Beware the echo. That night, the people sang songs of Nia, but she could not rest. The hum of the earth had changed. It was deeper, urgent, and troubled. At midnight, she went to the spring. The water shimmered as if alive. A dark shape moved beneath it, and a cold voice rose. You have listened well, child, but what you freed is not just water. I am the echo of all things buried. Pain, hunger, forgotten cries. You have woken me. The water rose in spirals. Villagers ran in fear. Nia stood her ground, trembling but unbroken. She beat her drum once, and the ground answered. Twice, and the clouds split. Thrice, and the air bent toward her. Return, she cried. You belong to silence, not the living. But the echo laughed. Even silence remembers. She understood then that she could not silence it, only guide it. So she knelt and began to hum, slow and sorrowful, the same tune her mother once sang when storms came. The echo softened, calling like mist around her, before sinking back into the spring. The waters calmed, the moon returned. When she opened her eyes, her drum had turned to stone, and her ears were no longer glowing, only simple and human again. Years passed. Nia became the quiet guardian of Tendo. She taught the children to listen to the rustle of grass, the sigh of rivers, the stories in the wind. The world speaks, she told them, but only those who listen can keep it alive. When she grew old, she sat beneath the baobab, beside the spring that still sang softly. People came from faraway places to seek her wisdom. She spoke little, often closing her eyes and saying, do you hear that? The mountain remembers your name. When she died, the wind carried her voice across valleys. Listen before you speak, hear before you judge. The world is made not by noise, but by listening. They buried her beside the spring, and from her grave grew two trees, whose branches called like ears toward the sky. And even now, When night is quiet and fires burn low, the elders tell her story to the children, the story of Nia, the girl who listened to the earth. They say that on calm nights, if you press your ear to the ground in Tendo, you can still hear her hum, not of warning, not of sorrow, but of peace. For in every generation, one will come who must listen more deeply than the rest, to the land, to the ancestors, to the heart of things unseen. And when that listener comes, the earth will stir again, whispering the old truth. All life begins in a sound heard well.